Morning.
Way down there.
No, actually, just, yeah, kidneys, just a whole bunch of things, kidneys, don't get around that, not even that. It's brain, it's complicated, because it, they have one thing, and then they find out, it's not like that. It was in a Bible study. Okay, I can't tell you, everything she had, right, I know. You go to bed, fine. And it is, she worries.
Ethan, will you talk really loudly for a second?
Yes, sir.
Nope. What's going on with this thing? Somebody packed it all up and I had to unpack it. And so now I think the settings are different. It's not doing that thing where it like shows you when you guys talk.
Oh,
You know what I mean?
yeah.
I don't know how to get it. Not sure how to get it to do it.
It's not a. The eyes are not, it's not acting.
That's a great question. Then probably not.
There's on for it
Gotcha.
somewhere.
Oh, is it just this?
Oh, it might have accidentally hit. Oh, wait.
That's the mute button.
Oh,
I think it's the one in the back, like where the cords come out. There we go.
you see it?
Yeah, right there. Yeah, that's it. Got to be it. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Maybe not.
Well, I mean, it's on. We need it to be on, so that's good. But,
Yeah, it's at least recording me, I guess.
well, I mean, is the out one or is the Zoom doing it, you know?
Yeah.
Oh, wait, here's an issue. No, now the eyes came on. Oh, there you go.
Sweet. That's just dumb. That's just a dumb error.
Man, I'm happy.
It's called an unforced error.
There's some type of acronym that tech support people have where it's something about the problem being between the keyboard and back of the chair or something.
Yeah.
Back to some of the user error. It
Yep.
Sounds fancy.
Well, I just assumed everything was plugged in correctly because it was showing, that, but I didn't realize my freaking laptop has a webcam. It's just my webcam is showing.
Yeah.
It's like I'm,
That was one thing. I'm like, I think your stuff is working. I
Yep.
don't think that.
Nope. I was like, oh, one of the cameras is working, but no, not even that.
Oh, that's right, that, all that, those start next week.
Send it.
Right, and when does all this start? That's the first time. We can just say that.
That's interesting. Hmm. There we, nope, yep. Okay, that's better. We don't need like the infinite regress of the TV repeatedly showing everything.
That's enough.
Did anybody see anyone that is probably going to be coming at church that is not here yet?
Well, was he good? Yeah, John's at the top stairs, but he might be helping out, chili cook off stuff.
Gotcha. I think he. Okay.
I don't know.
The Hartleys, I didn't see it. They're in Daytona.
Okay.
Oh,
Gotcha.
I was just gonna send theirs. I called her.
You did, you
She was
told.
What about anybody see the Schaefer's?
Oh, should I-
Jill is,
Yeah, because I left.
had a stroke.
Okay.
Oh, what?
Do you know, if I was, I would move.
Yeah, that wasn't you there? Yeah.
On Sunday morning, if I had been told.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't know that.
Had to go
I'll say
last week.
close called you too.
Oof. Is it okay?
He's rehab.
Yeah.
He's about to get out of the lodge. It's rehab, right?
Okay.
So yeah, this might be it. I mean,
Okay.
I think people will process the Terry stuff.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense.
And I left it somewhere between my car and underlines he has.
Like it's somewhere in the,
I did that help.
it's somewhere in the church, you mean?
I know the guy who got it at church.
Okay.
Or something down there. And I don't know if somebody, if I set it down to put it in the freezer or. This is not uncommon. Maybe you put it on top of your card. And get your, with this chili and first, yeah.
Did, sorry, this is not the Bible study, but Terry, I thought that she was getting better. Like, this is really sudden, right?
Understand.
Yeah,
Just need to rehab.
yeah, that is shocking.
It is.
Really sad.
If ever there was an Esther, she was,
Um,
she was her.
Yeah, I only met her once at one of the meet and greets. I mean, really talked to her, but
Right.
she's really kind, both.
Very,
Very
yeah, very kind and very strong person.
Really active in our church. for a long
Active
time,
for a long time. Yeah.
Retired now, so
Yeah,
she was our huge music person.
Okay.
yeah, she led choir for many years.
She was doing our Bible study, which of course Judith knows.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Yeah.
She's great, great as secretary.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she was on the board for a
Very.
Yeah.
long time. Yeah,
Well, that is really sad.
yeah, very bright person.
That was so cool. Other Terry.
Terry, Mr. Terry.
Mr. Terry.
Well, it was
Yeah,
Miss Terry
yeah.
and Mr. Terry.
Yeah, that makes sense.
They spelled their names, they spelled their names differently. That's how they met.
Yep.
They were both Terrys and that's how they met.
I had to stifle a laugh when Jesus was talking about it in church because she mentioned his sister Sherry, and I was like, oh, don't laugh. This is not the time. Not the time. All right, well, let's get into it. How many people were able to read some of it? Yep, a little bit. So this is probably. It's probably my favorite one in the series, in the book, probably. I think it's the most like, it's the one that I think is most able to, and it might just be who I am, but it's the most able to cause me to change behavior, and the most, I think the most convicting for me, just simply because so much of our lives are comparison. And, I think we all get like I compare this deliberation to like the verse in First John where it says like, if any of you sees a brother or sister in need, and does not, meet that need, then the love of Christ is not in you. And we all hear that verse and we think, oh, well, that means if I have two coats that, I see somebody without a coat, I should give them one of my coats. And, we all kind of get to that level, whether or not we do it or not, but we all get to that level. But then that's not even what it's saying. It's saying that if you have a coat and you don't give it.
Sorry.
No, you're fine.
I went up that way, I was locked out, but I go across it, then I got distracted by the Sunday school people.
No worries. You missed 30 seconds, so you're fine. I was just saying that this is my favorite deliberation in the book, and that there's a level of convictingness to it. And in the same way that, in First John says, if anybody sees a brother or sister in need, and does not meet that need, then the love of Christ is not in you. We all get to a place where we think that, if I have extra, I should give it. And what the scripture is saying is if you have it at all, like you give them, that you be the one in need. And that's a really difficult saying. Like a lot of things in the Bible, it's difficult to even read it that way, and to like accept that we are being called to that. Like I have the same reaction to that I have to when I read like be perfect as your heavenly Father is perfect. Well, I can't. So why are you telling me that? You know, that same internal rejection and temptation to water it down. And I think it's the same with this because, you know, it says, you know, to forgive, you know, we were told to forgive and, and that's, it's not easy, but there's a level of that that is easy to understand and then I can accept that, yeah, okay, if somebody really hurts me, I need to forgive them, like eventually, like, you know, like I can make that rational, but Kierkegaard is saying something much further. And again, I think he's right. He's saying, listen, it's your duty to work to not only to forgive, but to even remove the possibility of having to forgive. To shape your constitution and your relationality in a way that is so others focused that you are not just going to ignore the wrong that you feel, but you are going to use that offense as a possibility to cover up sin. And I think that is a radical practice. I think that it is it has an incredible potential to change everything around us and us and the person doing it. And is also something that is, we just have to be real, is incredibly hard and difficult to do in any consistent way. But without that calling towards those hard things, we will never do them. So I'm going to ignore the opening part about temporality and eternity. It's a little bit difficult and isn't terribly important. And oh, by the way, I meant to ask. So it starts right at noon. They're all downstairs setting up. I was thinking hard cap 40, like quarter till. Is that going to be enough time for everybody okay, cool. I still want to go over and, you know. So he talks at the beginning, he says, you know, love hides a multitude of sins. Love hides a multitude of sins. It does not discover sins, but not to discover what still must be there insofar as it can be discovered. That is hiding. And I do think he goes into a long discussion of discovery. He uses some like Danish idioms that we don't know. Like I really like, he says he's talking about like people who discover are lauded in society, like, you know, great discoverers. And then apparently in Danish, there's a lot of idioms that mean like, you know, that he's not a discoverer. And like the one that's you can just bet that he didn't discover anything is one of them. And then he for sure didn't invent gunpowder. It's apparently a big Danish, like he's a dummy. It's like I think it's a pretty good one. I love other languages idioms, they're fun. But you know, he's talking about the difference though there's a difference between just not discovering and hiding. One is a passive lack. You know, I'm not, you know, I just didn't see it. But he's saying, you know, that this work of love, to hide a multitude of sins is active, and I think that's going to be important. But let's go. And then this is also bringing in a lot of our stuff that we've talked about before, especially with one of the things that we've seen run throughout the book a lot is that difference between the wisdom of the one who loves and the world's sagacity. And he talks about it here about how basically how we someone who is hiding these sins is going to look like a fool, and how the world values, you know, knowledge of sin and not having knowledge of sin. So I'll just read a little bit of it. And this is the remarkable thing. If someone has discovered how fundamentally good-natured almost every human being is, he would hardly dare to acknowledge his discovery, and he would fear becoming ludicrous. perhaps even fear that humanity would feel insulted by it. If, however, someone pretends that he has discovered how fundamentally shabby every human being is, how envious, how selfish, how faithless, and what abomination can lie in the hidden in the purest, that is, in the one regarded by simpletons and silly geese and small town beauties as the purest, that person conceitedly knows that he is welcome. Then that is the yield of his observing, his knowledge, his story that the world longs to hear. Thus, sin and evil have one power more over people than we ordinarily think of. That it is so stupid to be good, so shallow to believe in the good, so small townish to betray ignorance, or that one is an uninitiated person, uninitiated into the innermost secrets of sin. Here we see quite clearly how evil and sin in large part consist in a conceited comparison relationship to the world, to other people. We can be very sure that the same people who, just because in their vanity they fear the world's judgment, and their associations with others seek to be attractive and entertaining by divulging a special acquaintance with evil. We can be very sure that the same people have a very entirely different view when they are alone, in their heart of hearts, when they do not need to be ashamed of the good. That rings true for me, like a lot. Like I am not the same person in my own thoughts as I am in front of other people, especially other people that I want to impress. And it brings me back. I don't, I try to make a point of not thinking about my high school years too much, but it brings me back to high school and wanting to be cool, and and saying just cutting things about people behind their backs that I cared about, and and just wanting like, oh, just being a good person is not cool. I don't want to, or being kind and being forgiving, and then seeing a few people in high school who modeled this behavior, who were kind and forgiving, and we just looked at them like they were idiots. Like, what are you doing? Like, you're losing the game.
Actually, that when we were reading, when I read too, a lot of the big overall, and we all have people who have done something that's hard to forgive.
Mhm.
And we've kind of done that, but in a way, it even comes down to day, little annoying things we remember about people. Even if you love them, you remember that they said that one time. I think, how many times have I said one thing?
Mhm.
I didn't mean it like that.
Right.
Yep.
But people will remember it.
Yep.
And I tend to, and I thought that came through along with, then I go all the way to God forgives. At
Yep.
the end, when he's
Yep. And
doing
it's
the judgment, what he's going to say.
yeah. And in a similar fashion, just like I remember a time in high school, like I went through puberty super late. I was like 15 before I hit 5 foot, I think. And just was my mom dressed me in like junior high, like I was not cool at all. And I very much wanted to be in high school and was probably trying too hard early in high school. And I remember we were at it's just a goofy memory. I was at Illinois State football game with some high school friends, and somebody who now is one of my closest friends, but I was probably being annoying. And Jake turned around and said, "Seth, your voice is so annoying." And it like cut me to my core. Like I was like worried around Jake for a couple of years, like didn't think he liked me. I told him that like 20 years later, and he's like, "What?" He's like, "I don't remember that at all." I was like telling him like how it like profoundly affected me, and he's like, "I don't remember that at all, dude." I'm like, and not in a way that he was dismissing it. He was just like, "I can't believe how did that's crazy that some." He's like, "I don't." He's like, back then
Yeah, then he would have understood.
yeah, well,
Right.
he said the thing that caught me is he said, "I didn't even think anybody was listening to me. Like I didn't think my words meant, like I was insecure too. It's just like, man, we're all just yeah, yeah, but yeah, and it can really cut. But so yeah, I just think that's it's good to remember that is in all of us still, because sometimes I have a tendency to read Kierkegaard, and he does do a lot of back and forth between like, this is don't be like this, be like this, or he does like the world is like this, and then it's really easy to be like, oh well, I'm not the world, so like I can just go to the part where we talk about the good stuff, and it's like, no, every single part of the world is still in us, and it's good to remember that these pitfalls that are going to keep us from doing these works of love. It's good to get a good notion of them. It's good to be reminded of the common, like universal pitfalls that are going to keep us from doing these works of love. So, reminding myself before I go to do these, hiding these sins, it's good to remember that, hey, like there's something in me that doesn't want to be this, that still wants to be regarded by the world as wise, and to set my heart to guard against that. And yeah. So he gives oh. So yeah, let's do this real quick. I'm just gonna read about a half page here. The one who loves discovers nothing. Therefore, he hides the multitude of sins that could be found through discovery. The life of the one who loves expresses the apostolic injunction to be a child in evil. What the world actually admires as sagacity is the knowledge of evil, whereas wisdom is knowledge of the good. The one who loves does not have and does not want to have knowledge of evil. In this regard, he is and remains, he wants to be and wants to remain a child. Put a child in a den of thieves. That is, let it remain there only a brief time. Then let it come home until everything gets experienced. You will note that the child, who's a very good observer and has an excellent memory, will tell everything in the greatest detail, yet in such a way that in a certain sense the most important thing is omitted. Therefore, someone who does not know that the child has been among thieves would least suspect it on the basis of the child's story. What is it then that the child leaves out? What is it that the child has not discovered? It is the evil. Yet the child's story about what it has seen and heard is entirely active. What is that?
Message?
I don't know.
Somebody trying to get in this.
That's what I thought, but I don't see any one. I don't know.
They'll dig again if they do.
What?
They'll dig again if they do.
Yeah, I hope so.
There's nothing in shadow.
Yeah. Okay. So what is it that the child has not discovered? It is the evil. Yet the child's story about what it has seen and heard is entirely accurate. What then does the child lack? What is it that so often makes a child's story the most profound mockery of the adults? Is it knowledge of evil, that the child lacks knowledge of evil, that the child does not even feel inclined to want to be knowledge about evil? In this, the one who loves is like the child. But at the basis of all understanding lies first and foremost an understanding between the one who is to understand and that which is to be understood. Therefore, knowledge of evil, however much it wants to fool itself and others into thinking that it can keep itself pure, that it is a pure knowledge of evil, still has an understanding of evil. If this understanding did not exist, if the knowledgeable one found no pleasure in understanding evil, he would abhor understanding it, and then would not understand it either. But watch out, because if one in curiosity gives evil a little finger, it will soon take the whole hand. And excuses are the most dangerous of all to have in stock. To become better or to seem to be better by means of comparison with the badness of others is, after all, a bad way to become better. So I think that what Kierkegaard is doing here, he's using a wordplay with understanding. And I don't know this for sure, but I'm pretty sure that he's just referencing Thomas Aquinas' Summa Theologica, the famous, probably the most influential work of theology in Christian history. And what he's referencing is a famous part of it, a famous quote: "The thing known is known in the mode of the knower." And what that means is that the way that you perceive the world, the way that you understand the world, is shaped by who you are. And so that's one of the outgrowths of that sentence. And so Kierkegaard is saying, look, when you look upon somebody else, and you actively intentionally do not see their sin, then you are seeing a different person. And it's not to say that you are seeing someone that they are not. What Kierkegaard is trying to say is that you are seeing who they actually are, because all of us who are all of us have a self that is being given to us from God, which we, as we talked about in the sickness unto death, we're either choosing or not choosing in every moment. But that self that we are being given from God, that is who we actually are. And so we are, in the same ways we talked about last week too, when we intentionally see them that way, when we choose to see them that way, when we choose to forgive in that way, we also are helping them to become that. Because there's no offense being given relationally. Like you can do things that may be offensive to me, but I'm not going to let them turn around and become reciprocal and grow. But he gives three different ways that love can hide sin, and they are through silence, through mitigating explanation, and through forgiveness. So I'm going to do them just one at a time here. So love hides a multitude of sins, but it cannot avoid seeing or hearing. It hides by silence. By silence, it hides the multitude. So he talks about rumors here as a way of showing how this works. So where to start? Do not say a multitude of sins still remains just as great, whether it is concealed or told, since silence certainly does not subtract anything, because one can conceal only something that exists. Instead, answer the question, does not the one who tells his neighbor's faults and sins increase the multitude of sins? Even though it is true that the multitude remains just as great, whether or not I conceal some of it, when I conceal it, I'm still doing my part to hide it. Furthermore, do we not say that rumor usually increases? We mean thereby that rumor usually makes the guilt greater than it actually is. But I'm not thinking of that now. In an entirely different sense, one may say that the rumor that tells the neighbor's faults increases the multitude of sins. Do not deal too light-mindedly with this knowledge of the neighbor's faults, as if everything were all right if only it is definite what is being told is true. Truly, not all private knowledge of what is true about the neighbor's faults is therefore without guilt, and one can oneself easily become guilty by becoming privy to it. In this way, rumor, or the one who tells the neighbor's faults, increases the multitude of sins. It corrupts people to become accustomed through rumor or gossip to finding out inquisitively, frivolously, enviously, perhaps maliciously about the neighbor's faults. It would certainly be desirable if people would learn again to be silent, but if there is to be chatter and inquisitive and frivolous chatter at that, then let it be about nonsense, not your neighbor's faults. The neighbor's fault isn't ought to be too serious a matter, therefore to chatter inquisitively and frivolously about it. But the one who by telling the neighbor's faults helps to corrupt people is of course increasing the multitude of sins. It is all too certain, it is gracious. It is only all too certain that every human being, unfortunately, has a great inclination to see his neighbor's faults, and perhaps an even greater one to want to tell them. And then the second part. Well, yeah, we can. So essentially, I think the main point that he's trying to make is like by 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 keeping silent about other people's faults, we not only do we hide some of their sins from the world, we don't need, there's nothing to be gained in light of Christ from more people knowing about another person's sins. There are, of course, mitigating like circumstances here. If we have someone endangering people, then yes, people need to know. Like we have, but even then, only in certain situations. There's nothing to be gained by just broadcasting someone's sins. And not only that, though, it increases the multitude of sins because that is a sin. And also you are also providing more opportunities for other people to sin. It's an occasion for sin for someone when they hear that. Well, what do you want to do? You want to go tell someone else it. You want to be the person who gets to tell that rumor to somebody else, and then yours and so there's the first part of silence is you're covering up a multitude of sins. He's not even primarily talking about the sin that's possibly being talked about, the original, sin that the neighbor's fault. He's saying you're stopping a whole bunch of other sins that can cascade out of this. We're stemming it here. Like this sin, that this neighbor's fault, this neighbor's sin isn't, I'm going to be a bulwark against that sin spreading to the community and causing more sin from a sin that isn't even connected to it. This person beat his wife yesterday. Well, okay, hopefully that's being dealt with, but I don't need to go spreading that to everyone because then that act of violence is going to cause violence all throughout the community in ways that it doesn't need to. And so that first part is just silence. It's pretty simple, but it is, I think, as much as the New Testament hits on gossip, it's clearly one that is just rampant and cancerous and has a tendency to just, balloon one sin into something that is, causing sin all over the community. There's a reason the book of James has an entire section on the tongue and is not very kind to it.
Gossip is one of those things, in my opinion, that's hard to define, but you know of.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, so next one, by a mitigating explanation, the one who loves hides a multitude of sins. So it is always the explanation that makes something what is now gracious. I'm having a tough time today. It is always the explanation that makes something what it now becomes. The fact or the facts are basic, but the explanation is the decisive factor. Every event, every word, every act, in short, everything can be explained in many ways. Just as it is untruthfully said that clothes make the man, one can truthfully say that the explanation makes the object of the explanation what it becomes. With regard to another person's words, acts, and modes of thought, there is no certainty that to accept does not actually mean to choose. Therefore, the explanation, is a choice, just because a diversity of explanations is possible. But if it is a choice, it is always in my power, if I am the one who loves, to choose the most lenient explanation. If then this more lenient or mitigating explanation explains what others light-mindedly, hastily, harshly, hard-heartedly, enviously, maliciously, in short, unlovingly explain as guilt, if the mitigating explanation explains this in another way, it removes now one and now another guilt, and in this way reduces the multitude of sins, or hides them. If people would rightly understand what beautiful use they could make of their imagination, their acumen, their inventiveness, their power to put things together, by using it to find, if possible, a mitigating explanation, then they would gain more and more of a taste for one of the most beautiful joys in life. It would become for them a passionate desire and need that could make them forget everything else. Do we not see this in other situations? How, for example, the hunter with each year becomes more and more passionately devoted to hunting? We do not praise his choice, but neither are we speaking of that. We're speaking only about how with each year, he more and more passionately devotes himself to this activity. And why does he do this? Because each year he gains experience, becomes more and more inventive, overcomes more and more difficulties, so that he, the old experienced hunter, now knows resources that no one else knows how to track the game when no one else knows how, now discerns signs that no one else understands how to use, now has worked out a more ingenious way to set his snares, so he's always fairly sure of success and having a good hunt, even when all others are unsuccessful. We regard it as onerous, but yet in another regard also a satisfying and fascinating task, to be a servant of justice who discovers guilt and crime. We are amazed at a person's acquaintance with the human heart, with all the evasions and fabrications, even the most sophistical, how he is able to remember from year to year the most insignificant things, merely in order to secure, if possible, a clue, how he, just by looking at the circumstances, seems to be able to conjure them into giving evidence against the guilty one, how nothing is too trivial for his attention, provided it would clarify his construction of the crime. Let the judge, though, be appointed by the state, let the servant of justice work at discovering guilt and crime. The rest of us are called to be neither servants nor judges of justice, but on the contrary are called by God to love, that is, with the aid of a mitigating explanation, to hide a multitude of sins. Imagine the most loving person, equipped by nature with the most magnificent capacities, for which every judge is bound to envy him, but with a zeal and energy that would do honor to a judge. All these gifts are used in the service of love in order to practice the art and to carry on the art of interpretation with the help of the mitigating explanation to hide a multitude of sins. Imagine his rich and the noblest blessed experience, how acquainted he is with the human heart, how many remarkable and also moving instances he knows about in which, no matter how complicated they seemed, he still succeeded in discovering the good, or at least the better, because he suspended his judgment for a long, long time, until, sure enough, a little circumstance came to light that gave him the clue. How by quickly and boldly concentrating all his attention on a totally different view of the matter, he had the good fortune to discover what he was really looking for. In other matters, people unite, and this is indeed praiseworthy, to alleviate poverty, to bring up orphan children, to rescue the fallen. But for this beautiful enterprise, with the aid of the mitigating explanation to get a little power, be it ever so little, over the multitude of sins, for this no association has yet been organized. But believing all things in love and hoping all things in love are the two chief means that this love, this lenient interpreter, uses to explain the sin of his neighbor. That is a more difficult one. In I think two ways. One, I like that part in the middle of what I read where he says, what if we used all our imagination, our powers, our wisdom, like some of us are, we're artistic and thoughtful. What if we use all those powers to come up with different reasons to believe that this person did that, to refuse to believe that the person hurt me because they meant to hurt me, or to refuse to believe that this wasn't an accident, or to refuse to believe that, and not only just to refuse to believe it, but to say it must have been this, it must have been some other reason. To believe all things, to hope all things, to truly rest in the knowledge that they are a good person. It's difficult to do that just as a matter of intellectual practice. It's difficult to do, but also it is exceedingly difficult to do consistently, to do in a way that becomes habit. I think it's easy to do with, ironically, I guess what I'm after is, I think it's more difficult to do with little stuff. Sometimes it's weird. Sometimes in life, the things that hurt me the most, you can't get out of it. You have to think about it so much that you're presented continuously with that, like, okay, I know that this, I feel utterly betrayed by this person. I'm deeply, deeply hurt, but I also know that I'm a Christian and I follow Christ and I'm called to forgive, and you start working at that big forgiveness because it's so big and it's so omnipresent. It's kind of, in a way, that's easier than all of the little tiny cuts that happen in our relationships in life, to be like, oh no, that's one I'm gonna not like, oh, my wife said a snippy word to me and no, she didn't mean that. Like, and then, all that accretion of little tiny stuff, to see that as, moment by moment, like, no, that wasn't, they're not sinning, just to live in a way that you don't see the little sins of life in our relationships everywhere. I think that's much harder because, when you hear people that divorce or people that break up, like, most of the time what you hear, though, sometimes, yes, there's a grand, like, maybe there was violence or maybe there was cheating, like, of course that happens, but I'd argue that most divorces or breakups are just this gigantic tray of little tiny things that we're carrying around that eventually just killed the love. And again, I'm not trying to say that this is Kierkegaard talking about relational advice, but it just is a good reminder that that's what's hard, I think. That refusing to see the little sins in all of the people that are in our lives, not just that they do against us, but that they do against others. I think that another category of sin that he brings up is, it might be hard. It might be hard to mitigate an explanation of if someone hurt me, it's even harder sometimes to mitigate and have an explanation for someone hurting someone else that we love. When someone I don't love as much as this person hurts that person, well, man, I think our natural tendency is, instead of, okay, well, I'm still gonna refuse to believe that that was intentional. Usually what I do is I say, don't hurt that person. I like them better. Like, you're not as important as them. Who do you think you are? And we get defensive, and there's some natural inclination of love in that, but it's not the highest that we're called to. Protectiveness and defensiveness is not the height of Christ's love. He did not protect himself, and he told us not to protect ourselves. And or at least not to live in a way that was a high priority. But we'll do the last one, and then we can just talk for a few minutes. Yeah.
That concept actually came out at the beginning, but about who really, really are. I think about that about myself, about just who they really, really are, and what they do are. We have to handle them differently, because I would like to think I never started a rumor. I would like to think that, because that's who I really am. But I blew it, that kind of thing. When I was working with severely emotionally disturbed children in Pennsylvania, residential treatment, those kids are so incredibly naive. And I mean, they got put in that place because of their behavior. But if you were to talk to them when they're about to go to sleep and really talk to them, you think, this is a real person who wants love and doesn't mean to be doing this. They can't stop themselves.
Yeah.
And you think, because that's who they really are, not what I'm seeing during the daytime when they are throwing rocks, windows.
Yeah. Well, even Paul said, the good I want to do, I do not do, and the evil I do not want to do, I do. So if Paul can struggle with that, that's pretty universal. Yeah. Yeah, and that's I think that is what we're talking about is a major core of what Kierkegaard is trying to do, not just in this book, but in his entire authorship, is look at other human beings. Like, everything in your life should be designed around looking at other human beings as God sees them. The more you are able to do that, the more you will radically reshape everyone around you, the entire world around you. I think it's his, I think, one of Kierkegaard's core ideas. And looking upon the world and looking upon others in the way that God looks at it is having what the early church fathers called the eye of charity, the divine eye. But so those first two, silence and mitigating explanation, those are designed, we're going to work to just not see it. But Kierkegaard acknowledges that there are times where that fails. There's times where you cannot help but see the sin. And so his third way is forgiveness. The other way that you hide sin, because the sin that you can't keep silent about, and the sin that there's just no way to explain it, well, then you forgive. So says keeping silent does not actually take away anything from the generally known multitude of sins. The mitigating explanation wrests something away from the multitude by showing that this and this were not sin. Forgiveness, though, removes what cannot be denied to sin. Thus, love strives in every way to hide a multitude of sins, but forgiveness is the more notable way. Earlier, we alluded to the expression, the multiplicity of creation. Let us once use it again for illustration. If we say that the researcher discovers multiplicity, whereas the uninformed person who to be sure also speaks of the multiplicity of creation, knows very little in comparison with him, then the ignorant person does not know that this or that exists, but it does still exist. It is not removed from nature by his ignorance. In his ignorance, it simply does not exist for him. It is different with the relation of forgiveness to the multitude of sins. Forgiveness takes the forgiven sin away. It is a wonderful thought, therefore, also faith's thought, because faith always relates to what is not seen. I believe that what is seen has come into existence from what is not seen. I see the world, but what is not seen, I do not see, that I believe. Similarly, in forgiveness and sin, there's also a relation of faith to which we are rarely aware. What then is the unseen here? The unseen is that forgiveness takes away that which does indeed exist. The unseen is that what is seen is nevertheless not seen. For if it is seen, it obviously is unseen that it is not seen. Yeah. The one who loves sees. Yeah. Here's the explanation. The one that loves sees the sin he forgives, but he believes that forgiveness takes it away. This cannot be seen, whereas the sin can indeed be seen. On the other hand, if the sin did not exist to be seen, it could not be forgiven either. Just as one who by faith believes the unseen into what is seen, so the one who loves by forgiveness believes away what is seen. Both are faith. Blessed is the believer. He believes what he cannot see. Blessed is the one who loves. He believes away that which he can indeed see. Does that make sense?
No.
Okay. So this is my favorite part of the deliberation, but he's saying that faith believes what is unseen. So we can't see God. And even, even if you wanted to say like, well, the disciples could see God. Yeah, but they're seeing, I would argue that seeing Jesus in the flesh it's actually Kierkegaard's an entire book arguing this exact case. That's harder to believe God. Like it's easy for me to believe that God became man, believe in the incarnation. It's really hard for me to believe that Pete is God. Like that's difficult. So we believe faith believes the unseen. And so what he's saying is that forgiveness is another form of faith, because like I'm staring at this sin, but it takes faith to believe that my forgiveness does away with that sin. And it takes faith to believe that it's gone, that it is not that it's forgiven. And so that's what he means by just as one by faith believes the unseen into what is seen. So just I believe that God is in the unseen, God is in the world, the seen. Just as faith does that, so the one who loves by forgiveness believes away what is sin. So I see the world and I believe I make what exists, I make it not exist. So like it's a way, all of Kierkegaard's metaphors in this are all visual, which sometimes gets a little, well, he just gets convoluted, period, sometimes. But I think the point he's making is when we flip that around from like faith is believing in God, you can believe something out of the world. Like we believe God into the world. I believe God into my life. I believe God into my relationships. I believe, that when I believe that that he's there in what is unseen, then it powerfully changes all my relationships, all my relation to the world, my relation to what I see, all of that. But you can do the inverse. You can have all these things that are in there and say that does not exist because I've forgiven it. And it takes faith to believe that it's gone, and it takes faith to believe that is actually going to have any real impact on my relationships. You can forgive somebody, and then they turn around and they do the exact same thing to you, and you're like, well, what's the point of this?
Well, that's what I was thinking, sticking your head in the sand doesn't make something go away.
Yeah, well, sticking your head in the sand is not forgiveness. That is, I'm not.
Yeah.
Yeah,
okay.
that's not forgiveness. Forgiveness is an act in which we say you're forgiving something that happened, and you're acting like it didn't happen. Not in again, that there are cases to this where I think we've talked about before, like, I'm not going to believe that Kierkegaard's not telling the abused wife to believe that her husband's not going to beat her again. There are obviously things that go on outside of that
And then
exceptions.
it's what we expect God though,
Yes.
because he forgives us but I do it again.
Mhm.
He sees it, that's the only thing at the end of it, I thought.
Yeah.
God's supposed to have forgotten all this stuff, and yet we know we all are going to have some kind of debt, and I thought, why do I need it? I've already got, he's not remembering or remember.
Yeah. And also on that, the difficulty to believe here is that this person really is the person I am in faith saying they are. That it takes difficulty to forgive that sin and see them as they really are, which is forgiven by God, as someone who is better than they actually are. It takes faith to do that. It takes faith to actually believe that this person is better than they keep showing me that they are. Like they keep showing me that they're not what I'm believing that they are, and I'm going to keep believing that they are that. And it's difficult. That takes faith. That last line, blessed is the believer, he believes what he cannot see. Blessed is the one who loves, he believes the way that which he can indeed see. The point is, you can still see that sin. When you've done the work, when you've kept silent and not expanded it, when you've tried to explain it away and it's still there, then you just say, well, I'm going to believe that it's not. And the way I'm going to do that is forgiving it and believing that that is real, that does change them, that they are like that. And I think the kicker for me on that is that, like we talked about in the previous deliberation, when you believe somebody is better than they are, it does have an impact on helping them to become that. When I am forgiven, it makes me want to be someone who doesn't do that more than getting away with it does. More, when I experience undeserved forgiveness in a relationship, I not only am I being shown that this is who I could be, but also I feel called out of that. I feel, you experience some hope that I could be that, oh, if this person believes that I can, that I can not be like this, then why don't I? And I'm not saying that this is not a one-for-one relationship of like, okay, well, if you forgive people, they become better, because we all know that's not the case. But what Kierkegaard is saying is, if you forgive people, you are giving them an occasion for that possibility. Every single act of forgiveness in my relationships is another possible first step that they could take to enacting, habits in their life where I don't have to forgive them for that anymore. Every single time that I forgive, I'm lovingly giving them the same self that God is giving them. That he is offering them at every moment. I'm offering that self to them too. I'm being a real conduit of God's actual love for them by saying, this is yourself. This is yourself. This is the self that God is giving you. I give it to you. And now there's no guarantees that they take it, but that is a true act of love, because true acts of love hurt and have a cost, and they also are generative. They give holy possibility. All acts of love from God are acts which have the possibility of love's multiplication, of an increase. Yeah.
I put this in the realm of expectations, because and I explain this a lot of times to the parents who I work with, but that, if you expect your child to do this higher thing, if you will, like just whatever, you expect them to be good when you leave them with somebody else, you expect them to behave, and like your those expectations of, I expect this, these things to happen, versus you're not expecting them to do bad. You're not expecting them. So like that would just be of another person too. Like, it's not that I expect you to do this, but you're conveying those higher expectations, like by forgiving them, I guess. Yeah.
It may be better than even expect is I believe you can do that.
Yes.
Yeah, believe, yeah.
Yep. Yeah, and not and even higher than that, I believe you are. Despite the evidence of my eye, I believe and there's another way to think about it too. Like if we think about time and eternity, which is why he says this, that starts it off with this. But basically, you can say, I believe that the totality of that which you are is here now, even though it's not, even though I can see with my eyes that you're not that yet, I believe that you are, because I'm looking at who I believe you will be. And
So
who,
God does with us.
yes, exactly. Yes, that's exactly right.
Well, I think so now I'm starting to see the seen and the unseen thing. Part more, because like I would argue that we're not really wired to forgive, right? We're wired more as like classical conditioning, you know, touch the hot stove, you get burned, don't touch the hot stove again, and you can apply that to people.
Mm.
And that's why it's, you know, arguably easier for us to forgive people who haven't personally like offended us. You know, you just somebody, I've been selfish in my life, we can say, oh, well, we forgive you. Right, but you haven't, but wait a
Yeah.
second, I've been selfish and that I took something from you, whoa, wait a second. Now, you know, classical conditioning, that's not cool, I can't hang out with you, so like forgiveness is essentially saying to like the seed part. To essentially, you know, forget it for what it's worth, maybe not forget, but don't pay attention to what you've actually seen. But to focus on seeing this person as how God sees them. And having, you know, and loving them and having, you know, having good expectations of them despite what you have experienced. And I think that's kind of the counter to how we are naturally wired, which I think in some instances you get the forgive but not forget. You know, I probably fall into that category, you know, or you.
That's
You're not
what
alone.
he's trying to make, isn't that the overall point he's trying to make?
Which part?
Where he's saying that God is expecting us to do as much as we can, like him.
Yeah.
Not to keep coming back to that.
Yep.
Forget it.
Yep. But the thing that the thing that Ethan said is the thing that Ethan says is really important is what you give your attention to. It's so much of what Kierkegaard's talking about in this entire book. Like, what are you giving your attention? Like, what do you, because, you know, all, this is phenomenology, but all consciousness is consciousness of, is a famous phrase in phenomenology type of philosophy. Like, you are conscious of something, or we have an intentionality. Like our consciousness is always intended towards something. And what Kierkegaard is saying is how you use that is one of the most important things in your faith, in your existential moment to moment faith. Like, what am I thinking about and how am I thinking about it? And how am I framing what I'm thinking about? Like, and it's why he talks so much about self and other. Like, am I just focused on myself and what I'm feeling, and or am I trying to focus what I'm feeling and how I'm feeling on others in a way that is going to increase love? Like, what am I conscious of? What am I trying to do? And how do I get this one so that I can do that? How do I frame and contextualize and habitualize the way that I am conscious and move through the world? How do I get that set up in a way that it makes it easier to love in the way that Christ loved? That's what he's doing in here. And it's what in my opinion, it's what makes Works of Love so great, is I don't come out of here with 19 different ways to like be more charitable. But what I do come out is with a totally radically different understanding of what's going on inside my spirit and my mind, and ways to orient and think about that so that I could become someone who in my moment to moment life is going to be more charitable, is because I'm already thinking about people that way. I'm thinking about myself that way. I'm mitigating all of the ways that my selfish self wants to dominate my attention, dominate my consciousness, dominate what I'm feeling, dominate how I respond. And I think that that's what makes all that. So yeah, when you say, what are you paying attention to? I think that's kind of the heart of it.
Well, I think it translates into the kind of bit of sacrificial love too, because if you're saying forgive and forget.
Yeah.
Like that, the forgive part's really tough because like I said, burn me once, shame on you, burn me twice, shame on me. And so if I'm gonna forget and look at you that way, that I'm putting myself now at risk.
Yep.
Actually sacrificing myself.
But
Yeah.
there's this scripture too, like, you know, how many times should you forgive? 7 times, and it's not, no, 7 times, 70 times 7,
Yep.
you know, so it's a constant forgiving. It's endless almost, but right.
Well, I'll close.
Forget part, it doesn't say anything about forget.
I'll close with one last passage, paragraph that's exactly about that. So forgetting in this highest sense is therefore not the opposite of recollecting, but of hoping. To hope is in thinking to give being. To forget is in thinking to take away being from that which nevertheless exists, to blot it out. Scripture teaches that faith pertains to the unseen, but it also says that faith is the constancy of what is hoped for. That is why what is hoped for, just like the unseen, is something that does not exist, to which hope and thinking indeed gives existence. Forgetting, when God does it in relation to sin, is the opposite of creating, since to create is to bring forth from nothing, and to forget is to take back into nothing. What is hidden from my eyes that I have never seen. Oh, what is hidden from my eyes, that I have never seen, but what is hidden behind my back, that I have seen. The one who loves forgives in this way. He forgives, he forgets, he blots out the sin. In love, he turns towards the one he forgives. But when he turns toward him, he of course cannot see what's lying behind his back. It is easy to understand that it's impossible to see what lies behind one's back, hence also that this metaphor has appropriately been invented by love. But on the other hand, it is perhaps very difficult to become the loving one who, with the help of forgiveness, puts another person's guilt behind his back. Ordinarily, people find it easy to place a guilt, even if it is a murderer, upon the conscience of another. But by way of forgiveness, to place another's guilt behind one's own back, that is difficult. But not for the one who loves, because he hides the multitude of sins. Let's pray. Father, we come before you asking that you would change our hearts in the ways that your servant Kierkegaard is talking about, that you would help us to become people who move through the world seeking to blot out sin. Make us in this community to start, and then in the greater community of our interlocked lives. Make us people who do not see sin, who actively invent and use our imaginations to explain it away, and when that is not possible, to remove sin from the world by forgiving through your power, as you've done for us. Keep us constantly in reminder of the grace you've given us, of our own gratitude for the way that you have forgiven our sins, and out of that may we live a responsive, striving, born of gratitude, to forgive the sins of those who are in our lives. Pray all this knowing that you are able to do it and believing that it is done. Amen. Thanks, guys. Oh, real quick, next week, I think we're just not going to have it. I'll be in North Carolina. It's probably going to be a bit too difficult to log into the system, like, and have it. I'd have to have somebody up here. Yeah. So we'll just not do it next week, and we'll start again. I think we have 2 weeks left. So
You said
cool.
email reminder on that, that would be good too.
Oh, I will. Oh, yeah. I'll send one out for sure. Yep. Yeah, because there's a lot of people who aren't here.
See.
Yep.
Well,
Let's ciao.
every other week then, because then the next weekend is, yeah, and then the following is Easter, and then, so if there's 2 weeks left.
Maybe it's just one. So
Oh.
next week is the week after that Palm Sunday. Yeah, I think then that would be our last one, I think.
Okay.
Yeah. And then remind me,